Welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for Tuesday, October the 1st, 2024, and we usher in the new month with a history-making day as Republican Senator JD Vance of Ohio and Democrat Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota meet in New York City for the one and only vice presidential debate of this year's election. And former President Jimmy Carter's making history today as he celebrates his 100th birthday, becoming the first U.S. president ever to reach that milestone. Happy birthday, Jimmy. If you're listening to the NEWSMAX Daily for the first time, I do have a cold or sore throat or something going on that I just can't shake. And for those of you that do know me, I have not smoked a cigar in at least 2 weeks. So we'll get into the debate and the race for the White House in a moment. First, rescue and recovery efforts continue with hundreds of people reported missing in the wake of Hurricane Helene. This is President Biden in a speech from the White House yesterday.
The head of FEMA, Deanne Griswold, is on the ground now in North Carolina. She's going to stay in Asheville and Appalachia region for the foreseeable future. There's been reports of over 100 dead and consequence of this storm, and there are reports of up 600 people unaccounted for because they can't be contacted. God willing, they're alive, but there's no way to contact them again because of the lack of cell phone coverage. I've directed my team to provide every available resource as fast as possible to your communities to rescue, recover, and to begin rebuilding. In addition to FEMA, it includes the Federal Communications Commission to help establish communications capability, the National Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Department of Defense are going to provide all the resources at its disposal to rescue and assist in clearing debris and delivering life-saving supplies. So far, that's over 3,600 personnel deployed. That number is growing by the day. I quickly approved requests from governors of Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia, and Alabama for an emergency declaration.
The president said he will travel to North Carolina on Wednesday. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump was in Georgia yesterday and in conjunction with Franklin Graham's Samaritan's Purse, brought truckloads of supplies with him.
And we came down with truckloads of things, and we're going to have that done by Franklin's incredible organization. They've done such a good job. We've done this before, but we have a lot of truckloads of different items, from oil to water to all sorts of equipment that's going to help them. But we're here today to stand in complete solidarity with the people of Georgia and with all of those suffering in the terrible aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Helene turned out to be a big one, like just about the biggest that anyone's seen. I spoke with all of the relief people, all of the people that do this for a living and do this at least to help, and they said they've never seen one this bad. Valdosta has been ravaged. The town is very, very badly hurting, and many thousands are without power. They're running low on food and fuel. We brought a lot of it down with us. It's going to be distributed now or soon throughout Georgia, as well as North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Virginia, Alabama, and Tennessee. That's our big one. And the devastation wrought by this storm is incredible. It's so extensive. Nobody thought this would be happening, especially now it's so late in the season for the hurricanes. Homes, hospitals, highways, and cars have been plunged underwater. Entire neighborhoods have been turned into lakes. Nobody's seen anything like it. And to every family that's been displaced here in Georgia and North Carolina, which has really been hit, we were going there also, and they don't have communication. They don't have anything right now. We're trying to. I just spoke to Elon. I'm getting him. We want to get Starlink hooked up because they have no communication whatsoever. And Elon will always come through. We know that. And so we're working on that, getting them hooked up. They asked me whether or not that would be possible. We're going to try and get the Starlink in there as soon as possible because they have no communication. And throughout the region, our hearts are with you, and we are going to be with you as long as you need. It's called an hour of need. You're in our prayers, and we pray to God. And throughout the long weeks that lay ahead, you're going to have a lot of work, but the end result is it's going to be good. We just wish so many people weren't so badly hurt, and in many cases sadly no longer with us.
Some people make excuses. Some people make things happen. Donald Trump on the ground in Valdosta, Georgia yesterday, making arrangements for truckloads of supplies from Reverend Franklin Graham's North Carolina-based Samaritan's Purse, which is an incredible organization. They have helped so many people around the world. I've talked about that organization before. At the start of the Russian invasion into Ukraine a few years ago, Samaritan's Purse was sending their own cargo jet full of supplies into Ukraine every week, sometimes more than once a week. I was working in Charlotte, North Carolina at that time, so it was almost like a daily story or a weekly story every time a Samaritan's Purse jet full of supplies took off from North Carolina to Ukraine. And Trump also talked about Elon Musk's Starlink, which, if you are not familiar, is the broadband network that Elon created to reach the farthest places of the world, which he also supplied to Ukraine at the beginning of the Russian invasion. Maybe he's still supplying broadband service to Ukraine with the Starlink. I'm not sure. The United States, meanwhile, is facing another potentially massive problem today, which will also impact us economically. Tens of thousands of port workers around the country have walked off the job today, leaving cargo containers at a standstill. And our Commerce Secretary, Gina I Hate Trump Raimondo, told CNBC she doesn't really know anything about it.
What would happen if the strike goes, let's say, longer than a week?
Again, I have not been very focused on that. I would refer you to the White House or the Transportation Secretary.
Tonight's red hot video, that's Joseph Robinette Biden's Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo, admitting that she's utterly incompetent, not paying attention, doesn't really know about the biggest strike to hit the country in a decade or more. And, this in response to the Longshoremen's Union, the largest union representing port employees in the United States of America, announcing that they will begin striking at midnight tonight. And it will be, and we were just talking about it during the break, incredibly disruptive to the economy. And, honestly, at this point, we're looking at the Christmas season and Election Day.
Yeah. JP Morgan estimates the daily losses at $5 billion, or about 6% of our national GDP. And everybody knows what the solution is. Invoke Taft-Hartley and say that this is a matter of national security, which it is. These are workers that these are not minimum wage workers that are fighting for health care benefits. These are workers that make upwards of $200,000 a year who are fighting not only for more money, but also to stop automation. And remember, this automation is also really important to screen these goods, to make sure you don't have pirated goods, to make sure you don't have illegal drugs, illegal fentanyl. They want to block that. And if you look at ports in China they can move 113 containers per hour. New Jersey and New York, two of the biggest ports in the world, move half the rate. And yet they want to block it. And because it's right before an election, Biden is torn between, does he do the right thing and just say this is a matter of national security, or does he cower to the unions and let the American economy take the hit?
I'm guessing cower to the unions and let the economy take the hit.
It just shows how dysfunctional the White House is, where no one is leading. The mere fact is, this strike is coming, and there's an office called the Cabinet Affairs Office. You bring together the members from the Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, Small Business Administration. You all discuss, the National Economic Advisors, you all discuss the crisis. You talk about the plan to say what is going to be the message. And Raimondo, who's the Secretary of Commerce, cannot answer a simple question that she's not focusing on this. What she's focused on is saying that we got to eradicate Donald Trump for good. That is what she's saying. She is a political hack, and she is not serving the interest of the American people. Is she in her personal
capacity when she's trying to eradicate Donald Trump? I just wonder.
I think so. I got to say, and Jason, we've run out the clock on you, but there are those who are saying that the Biden White House is sticking it to Kamala here, that boy, are they not doing her any favors.
Well, I think they definitely want to settle the strike, as the president misheard the question, but responded to it. Both sides.
Raimondo.
Yeah, both sides need to come together.
But nobody's doing anything.
And we've seen him act on labor unions and get deals done in the past. So I have confidence in him.
Political analyst Jason Nichols, along with former White House Director of Strategic Communications Mercedes Schlapp, on Chris Plante and the Right Squad. A round table discussion weeknights, 10 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. Definitely check it out. The Port of Miami is one of the busiest ports, if not the busiest, in the entire country, along with the ports of Jacksonville and Tampa. This is Florida Congressman Byron Donalds on Newsmax.
It'll be devastating for Florida, but it's going to be devastating for every hardworking man, woman, and child in our country. When you have a strike like that, what it's going to do, the prices of every other good and service is going to go up massively. Christmas, massively more expensive. Thanksgiving, immensely more expensive. It's going to hurt the working people in not just every battleground state, but every state in our country, because so much product comes through these ports. Joe Biden can use federal law to stop that strike right now. He won't do that. And why won't he do that? Because it's what you just played at the top. Because they're having a serious problem with blue-collar union workers in the United States. And the reason they have that problem is because the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden economy has strapped those families with massive price increases because of crazy inflation caused by this administration, while at the meantime having no strategy for a broad-based economic growth. It's a recipe for disaster, but we should be accustomed to this by now, because that's the only thing that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden specialize in.
Well, I think specifically to that point, President Biden himself said he didn't want to interfere because it was collective bargaining. And I think, again, that's the magic word, the phrase that pays. When you look at that, you have a president that is more connected to the politics than he is to the actual impact on the people. Let's go into, broader issues here, take it up a level. We see what's happening with this devastation, with this hurricane that's ripped through your state, ripped all the way up the coast. We talked about at the top of the show, rural America being abandoned by this administration, from East Palestine, where the president said he would go soon and then didn't show up for an entire year. As I say, they like to show up to commemorate your pain, but they never want to do anything to actually make sure that pain comes to an end.
No, you're absolutely right. Listen, they're nowhere to be found when crisis hits. When the crisis happens in America, they're not here with us. They'll talk about it from the White House. Corinne Jean-Pierre will go out there and say whatever she says. The news reporters, most of them, not you, fine sir, but most of them, they'll cover for them. But they won't actually get down to the nitty-gritty of how to help people get back on their feet. North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, massively devastated. Eastern Tennessee, massively devastated. South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, devastated. Where's Joe Biden? Oh, he was on the beach. Where's Kamala Harris? She was out west raising money, got on a plane, got on Air Force Two, not just any plane. She ain't flying Delta. Right. She's not flying United. She's flying Air Force Two on everybody's dime. She went back to D.C. She didn't go to these states and figure out exactly what's going on the ground to make sure people can get the help that they need in a timely fashion. This is what happens when you elect people who really don't have an idea of how to fix problems and how to set people up for success. What they know how to do, put out talking points, not really talk to people, not engage, not debate, not engage media at all. They run, they hide until hopefully the news cycle changes. That's what you're going to see with Kamala Harris. We cannot have that running our country.
Absolutely.
Florida Congressman Byron Donalds on Newsmax with host Joe Pinion. I don't know if we're going to see shortages like we did during COVID, but if cargo containers are not being put on trucks, if they're going to start stacking up at the ports and not being transported, what does that tell you? It is not going to be a good situation. Joe Pinion mentioned East Palestine and how quickly we forget. He means East Palestine, Ohio, not Palestine in the Middle East. East Palestine, Ohio, the site of that Norfolk Southern toxic train derailment last year. You remember that whole disaster? I mean, it was an actual disaster and another PR disaster for Biden and Harris. Over the weekend, we found out that $600 million in compensation for those residents, many of whom lost their homes, could be delayed for up to 2 years because a federal judge approved an appeal of the $600 million deal. Imagine if you lost everything. Not only did they lose their home, but basically the whole town is destroyed. I mean, people are not just having to get new homes, but new homes in new towns. So imagine that's you, and then you're expecting to get money a year later, and then you're told this week you're going to have to wait maybe 2 more years or more to get compensation from the people responsible for it because a judge approved their appeal. All right. And finally, the vice presidential debate is happening tonight. Let's get to it. We will have pre and post debate coverage as always. CBS says the moderators, Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan, will not fact check the candidates. Like the 2 presidential debates, there will again be no studio audience, which I mentioned yesterday, but the microphones will not be muted tonight, which could make things a little more interesting. Congressman Tom Emmer of Minnesota has been helping Senator Vance with debate prep because as a Minnesota representative, he knows Governor Walz well, right? He sat down with our Katrina Zish.
You're in town for the debate tomorrow night in New York City. How has prep been going? Let's start with that. And how does it work? Like, do you come out with surprise comments? How do you channel Tim Walz?
Well, my job, and thanks for having me, Katrina, my job was to be Tim Walz, which I spent the better part of a month, our team, myself, watching every debate he's ever done. He is very good at this debate stuff. He never gives you any substance, but he's really quick about making up numbers, and he lies with conviction, so you just accept it and move on. And this idea that they're going to fact check each other, it's going to be very interesting. We're lucky because JD is ready to go. Anyway, my job was to beat Tim Walz. So when you asked what I was doing, I learned his mannerisms. I learned his slogans, how he's going to go and attack and how he's going to try and deflect. And I even put the uniform on.
Wow. Real method acting stuff here, sounds like.
Well, it was good because I think JD got to see firsthand exactly what he's going to be dealing with tomorrow night. And look, JD, I don't have to tell JD what to do. He just needed to see what it is he's going to be debating. Tim Walz, you might have heard me say, the hardest part of playing Tim Walz is to learn how to lie with a straight face. Tim Walz is not who he portrays himself to be. He comes across as this folksy, outdoors, family type guy. Once you get to know him and his policies, people don't like him. He's as radical, in fact, in some cases more than Kamala Harris. This is a guy who wants Minnesota to be a sanctuary state. This is a guy who wants to give illegals health care, wants to give them college education. What about our kids? Yeah. I mean, he does everything and more that Kamala Harris does. But JD, his job will be just to stay on his message, which is Donald Trump fixed the economy once, he'll do it again. He fixed the border once, he'll do it again. Got crime under control, he'll do it again. And he will make us safe here and around the globe.
It helps when you have facts to stand on. I also love how you called him Gavin Newsom in a flannel shirt. But I want to get to this because the debate rules, of course, are a thing. You mentioned how the candidates will be able to fact check each other. Here are the major rules: 90 minutes of debate time, 2 breaks of 4 minutes each. No audience. I'm going to read them to you. No audience. 2 minutes for closing statements. A virtual coin toss was held on September 26. Vance won and elected to go second with his closing statement. Of course, no props, no pre-written notes. You'll get a pen, bottle of water. Campaign staff, this is interesting, may not interact with candidates during the break. So my quick question there in terms of fact-checking each other. As you said, you expect Governor Walz to come out with all sorts of numbers and statistics and things that you say will likely be untrue. How can Mr. Vance come out and say something about a lie? Like what is his strategy to be able to allow the American public to see through the falsities?
I'm not going to put words in JD's mouth. JD will do this very well, but I expect that Tim Walz would do things like, do you think we're better off today than we were 4 years ago?
Sure.
He's going to say, absolutely. Donald Trump left this country in crisis. We had the worst economy since the Depression. Obviously, doesn't point out the pandemic, right? Didn't have a plan to resolve COVID or defeat COVID. In fact, Trump put us on path to get COVID under control, and Harris and Biden took credit for it.
Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmers on American Agenda with Katrina Zish. So again, that is tonight, 9 o'clock. The MLB postseason begins today with 4 wild card games, including the New York Mets, M-E-T-S, Mets, who just squeezed in or squozed into the playoffs last night with a win over Atlanta, who is also in the wild card tonight in San Diego. And today is International Coffee Day, being celebrated around the world with different cultures enjoying different types of coffees in their own unique style of preparing it. I basically celebrate Coffee Day every day. And don't forget, Newsmax will have pre- and post-debate coverage tonight, so make sure you join us for in-depth conversation and analysis. And be sure to keep it on Newsmax for all of the news all day long, Newsmax, Newsmax.com, and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all of your favorite shows and guests. Simply go to NewsmaxPlus.com and get signed up if you're not already signed up. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the debate, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news.